All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel. So as you guys know, Elden Ring was a roaring success, much more than anyone was expecting it to be. FromSoftware absolutely nailed this ambitious project, bringing their iconic Dark Souls formula into the open world setting with a brand new fantasy created by George R.R. Martin, who is, of course, the creator of Game of Thrones. But what's in store for Elden Ring fans as 2023 goes on? Are they working on a sequel, or is FromSoftware going to drop a massive expansion on us instead? In this video, I'm going to be covering all of the recent leaks and updates regarding Elden Ring's future, what you can expect from any kind of follow-up, and when we can expect this big expansion to be releasing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on, and don't forget to enter the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. I'm giving away a PS5 for 100,000 subscribers. I've got all of the details in the pinned comment. So in case you've been living under a rock, Elden Ring is an ambitious open world fantasy RPG released in 2022 and was developed by FromSoftware, the creators of the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne, and so much more. You can create a custom character and explore the massive open world in an attempt to repair the mysterious Elden Ring and become the fabled Elden Lord. Now, much like other FromSoftware games, Elden Ring tells its story in a very direct and passive way, which can get a little bit hard to get used to if you haven't played a Dark Souls game before, but it has incredible effects on world building. By exploring this world and learning more about it organically, you become more invested in the things around you, and it's far more immersive than a game that tells you everything about the open world through cutscenes or lengthy dialogue sequences. FromSoftware is the expert at indirect storytelling, and Elden Ring is one of the best examples of this. Elden Ring was a massive success, receiving critical acclaim, winning several Game of the Year awards, and selling over 17 million copies as of November 2022, although that number has likely jumped to over 20 million by now, especially after all of the year-end award showcases and holiday sales. FromSoftware made it clear that Elden Ring is intended to be the first game in a brand new series, although they haven't clarified just when the official sequel is going to come out. FromSoft are some of the most iconic developers in the gaming industry right now, and just about everything that they can release is going to immediately sell a few million copies. So I can imagine it's pretty tempting to just rush new games out the door instead of supporting the most recent one. However, something that I really respect about FromSoft is that they've always been dedicated to the old school expansion pack model. Instead of getting to work on a new game right after releasing one, they often get to work on a massive expansion pack instead as a way to hold fans over until their next major game launch. Dark Souls 1 was released in late 2011, and then about 6 months later, we got the massive expansion called Artorias of the Abyss. Dark Souls 2 had a trilogy of expansion known as the Lost Crowns, which were 3 distinct campaigns released roughly a month apart from one another, which was about 6 months after the release of the base game. Dark Souls 3 had a pretty loving approach to DLC, featuring 2 massive expansions, although they didn't come out until roughly a year after the base game. The main point that I'm getting at right now is that FromSoftware has a history of launching huge games and then launching an appropriately huge expansion pack a little while after the game's launch, and since Elden Ring is their biggest game to date, it makes total sense for them to be working on something to add on to it, and thankfully we got some recent intel as to what that add-on is going to be. Now, when it comes to Elden Ring, it seems FromSoftware already has something in the works, but they're intentionally being very secretive about it. During last year's Game Awards, they stated that they have several more things that they want to do with the game, but didn't elaborate. However, this does seem to confirm in a way that the leaks and rumors about a massive paid expansion is coming in 2023. In December of last year, Elden Ring players got their first major DLC update, which was the Colosseum DLC, which greatly expanded upon the PvP aspects in the game and was clearly made to hold people over until a massive expansion. Let's face it, FromSoftware wouldn't have released a big free expansion like this if they weren't planning on doing something more in the near future. Data miners have actually discovered a number of new additions to the game that you can't access on your own, such as references to even more expansions to the PvP mode, including victory and loss messages. There were even a handful of files tagged DLC 01, which was added to the Colosseum update, which is a pretty clear hint that there's likely something larger in the works. Now, there's a theory within the Elden Ring community that there is going to be relatively a small free expansion released that makes use of some of the unused assets, and then the big paid expansion will come out later once people are hyped for it, as there are also a couple of unused maps hidden in the game files and nobody knows what they're for. There are a lot of story elements that could be expanded upon with an expansion, and with all of the unused assets slowly being added to the game files, FromSoftware is certainly up to something. I do think it's kind of interesting that they've been focusing so hard on the PvP aspect up to this point, but that makes sense from a player retention standpoint. If you're trying to bring people back to an open world RPG and make sure that they're still interested in the game, especially when you're about to drop a big expansion, an elaborate PvP mode is a good way to do that. According to the Steam charts, Elden Ring saw a massive 68% increase in players as of December 2022, which was a result of the Colosseum update, and then 70% increase in January, which I believe is both due to the holiday sales and the free advertising all of those Game of the Year awards actually gave them. According to a post on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, Elden Ring Steam DB has packages linked to the Steam page updated for the first time since the PvP DLC and its original release. According to an Elden Ring data miner, they tweeted out 17 hours ago, 4 subs in Elden Ring Steam DB got updated. I cannot see what the changes are, but those subs should have store pages. 2 of those subs are returning a 404 error. Now for the next bit of information, we actually have another Reddit thread, which states, according to leaked Discord conversation with Lance McDonald, who is a well-known data miner and leaker for Elden Ring, as well as other FromSoft projects. The Discord conversation, he states that there's a huge DLC coming, and then Lance said this, and I quote, "I know a lot about what it's adding, but I don't know about any new gameplay mechanics, but the DLC is really big." FromSoftware is in a prime position to release more updates for Elden Ring. There's a rumored PlayStation showcase that's likely set to happen within the next few months, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if FromSoftware jumps in and announces the first major expansion for Elden Ring, which means it's likely been in the works for much longer than any of the Dark Souls expansions were. But if it's good and worth the wait, I doubt anyone will complain. I think most of the gaming world just wants more Elden Ring at this point, no matter how long that they have to wait for it. However, all of this talk of DLC raises the big question, how long Elden Ring will be supported. Will FromSoftware release a second expansion? After all, Dark Souls 2 and 3 had both multiple DLC expansions, and since Elden Ring is a much bigger game, especially compared to their previous works, they probably have a ton of ideas. While nothing is officially confirmed just yet, it seems inevitable that there will be indeed a sequel to Elden Ring. The game's director has dodged the question in interviews over the last year or so, but he hasn't ruled anything out, and the game's publisher, Bandai Namco, has deliberately referred to Elden Ring as a franchise, which seems like a pretty clear indication that they're expecting something more from it. Plus, Elden Ring was FromSoftware's biggest launch of all time, so I'd imagine that they want to make something else out of it. FromSoftware do have a tendency to be quite secretive about what they're working on, so I don't think we're going to hear anything about Elden Ring 2 until it's relatively close to completion. The next game release on FromSoftware's schedule is the long-awaited Armored Core 6, which will be a pretty drastic change of pace from the studio, as it's a mech combat game rather than a dark fantasy RPG. Then again, maybe FromSoftware could use a little bit of a change of scenery after working so long on Elden Ring. So by all means, they could take a breather, but just how long will Elden Ring be supported? Are FromSoftware working on a second DLC? In my personal opinion, I think this upcoming expansion is going to be all we get until the next game comes out. Dark Souls 2 and 3 may have gotten multiple expansions each, but they also weren't true open world games, so FromSoft didn't have to put quite as much work into them. With the immense success and size of Elden Ring, I'm willing to bet that both FromSoftware and Bandai Namco would rather compile their new ideas into development of a new game instead of releasing a ton of expansions for the first one. It's also worth noting that Elden Ring is almost a year old at this point, which would make this upcoming expansion pack one of the longest DLC waits in FromSoftware's history. Most open world games and RPGs don't get expansions more than a year after the initial launch of the game, especially if there's a sequel in the pipeline. So personally, I wouldn't get too excited for a second Elden Ring DLC as much as I would love to see it. The upcoming expansion is likely going to be the only piece of DLC that Elden Ring receives, or rather DLC that expands on the story rather than adding to the PvP aspect of the game. Armored Core 6 is actually set to come out sometime this year, and once that happens, FromSoft will have to come clean about what they're working on next. So unless Dark Souls 4 is secretly in development, I'm expecting Elden Ring 2 to be announced in late 2023 and released roughly a year or two later. Elden Ring was a much bigger success than anyone was expecting it to be, and honestly, I'm all for it. With how buggy and underwhelming a lot of AAA games have been recently, it's great to see an ambitious and legitimately excellent game receive so much praise, and I'm really hoping Elden Ring's success shows other publishers that gamers are far more interested in gameplay first experiences than whatever rushed out garbage that they've been working on. So let me know what your thoughts are on this upcoming Elden Ring DLC news in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on, and don't forget to enter the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. I've got all of the details in the pinned comment. Thank you all for watching. This has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.